Hi everyone, this is David from Bink Poker, and today we're going to be learning how to play the game of No Limit Texas Hold'em, the most common form of poker played across the world. Texas Hold'em involves each player being dealt 2 cards, also known as hole cards, and the object of the game is for each player to make their best 5-card hand using their 2 hole cards and the 5 community cards that come down in the center of the table. The game can be played with anywhere from 2 to 10 players per table. Usually about 8 or 9 players per table is the ideal scenario. The object of the game is to accumulate all of the chips on the table. Players can win chips either by making the best hand or convincing their opponents that they have the best hand, also known as bluffing. In order to play a game of poker, you need a few basic pieces of equipment. First and foremost, you're going to need a deck of cards. Secondly, you're going to need chips. Thirdly, some sort of timer to measure blind levels. And you need something to signify who is the dealer on each particular hand, so a dealer button. The setup for each hand involves one player being the dealer, signified by the dealer button. To the left of the dealer is the small blind, and to the left of the small blind is the big blind. You may have heard of blinds before. You may have even heard them called antes. It's the same thing. But what these essentially do is ensure there are some chips in every pot to be won. If we didn't have blinds, people could conceivably sit there and just not play any hands and just keep folding and try and get towards the end of the tournament. So what the blinds do is ensure there is some chips in the pot on every hand to be won. After that hand has been dealt, the dealer button moves one place to the left, meaning this person would then be the small blind, and this person would then be the big blind. The big blind must always be double the amount of the small blind. Now this continues after each hand. The dealer button moves, as do the 2 blinds. Of course, at all Bink poker events, we have professional dealers who do all of the dealing for every player. But we still have a dealer button that makes its way around the table to ensure that every single player has their turn at being dealer, small blind, big blind, and all other positions around the table. Aside from knowing the basics of the game and how the betting rounds work and what equipment you need, the other key thing that you need to know, of course, is the hand rankings. What hand beats what? What is a flush? What is a full house? What is a straight, etc., etc. So I'm going to put up on the screen now a list of all of the hand rankings in descending order. So starting with the best possible hand you can make, which is a royal flush, all the way down to a high card. So we've now got our setup. Somebody is the dealer, to the left of them is the small blind, and to the left of them is the big blind. We've got our agreed time length levels for the blinds, so we're good to deal a hand. What will happen is the dealer will deal each player 2 hole cards face down. These cards remain face down and they're for your viewing only. What I'm going to do for this example, however, is deal the cards face up so you can see the kind of cards that people get dealt and how they interact with the community cards in the center of the table. So let's say, for example, this is how the cards are dealt. So let's look at how this particular hand might play out. The first person who has to make a decision is the person to the left of the big blind. Now they've been dealt the 5-4 of 2 different suits, which is a weak hand, and they decide, you know what, I'm not going to be involved in this hand, and I'm going to fold and wait for my next hand. The next player to act, who in this scenario is on the dealer button, decides, actually, I like the king 10 of diamonds, I'd like to play this hand. And rather than just calling the 200, I'm actually going to put a raise in. Now, a minimum raise must be double the size of the big blind. So they make it 400 to go. The action is now on the small blind, who decides, yeah, I want to continue with this hand. I could raise because I've got a really strong hand, ace king of spades, but I'm actually just going to call the 400 and see how things develop. So they put in the extra 300 required to play. The big blind also thinks, yeah, quite like my hand, 9-7 of clubs, and it's only 200 more chips for me to continue, so I'm going to put in the 200 as well. So we're going to have 3 players going to what is called the flop. The dealer gathers up all the chips that have been placed into the middle and places them in the center of the table. And this is called the pot. This is what these 3 active players are playing for. Now what will happen is the dealer will deal what is known as the flop, which is 3 community cards in the center of the table. The dealer will always burn 1 card, so discard the first card to ensure no funny business is going on, and then deal the 3 cards face up of the flop. The action now is to the person to the left of the dealer button. So the player with ace king of spades has to make a decision whether they want to either check, which means to pass the decision on to the next player, or to bet. In this particular case, they think, yeah, my hand is pretty strong here. I have the top pair of kings. I also have 3 to a flush with 3 spades. So I'm going to continue in this hand and I'm going to bet 500 chips. Player in the big blind thinks, yep, I have a middle pair here. I have a pair of 9, so I'm also going to continue. And the player on the button also likes the fact that they have top pair. They're going to call as well. So those chips also go into the pot in the center of the table. And now we see what is known as the turn card. So again, dealer burns 1 card and places the turn card down. Action once again returns to the player to the left of the dealer button. So they decide to bet 2,000 chips. Next player to act thinks, okay, I still have my pair of 9s, but 2,000 is quite a lot of chips to put in the pot here. So I'm actually going to step out at this point and fold my hand. Player on the dealer button, however, still likes the top pair of kings and decides, okay, 2,000 seems like a fair price. I'll put in those to call. And those 4,000 chips now join these other chips in the pot. The final card to be dealt now is known as the river. One more card to come. As before, dealer will burn 1 card and deal the final river card. The action is once again on the player to the left of the dealer button. They bet 2,000 again. Action moves to the other player in the hand, but they decide 2,000 is fair, going to call 2,000 to see what the other player has. At this point, those chips are moved into the main pot and both players are required to show their hands. This is known as the showdown. The showdown involves all active players showing their cards, and the dealer will then award the pot to the winner, which in this case would be the ace king of spades hand. So in that last example that we showed, the small blind who had the ace king of spades decided to keep betting each time because they liked their hand. But they also had another alternative, which was to pass the action to the player to their left. And if you want to do that, that's called checking. And you can either say the word check or you can tap the table, which is a universally recognized sign of checking and passing the action to the next player. Let's say you want to put in a raise. You want to increase the price it costs for other players to come into this particular pot. What is the minimum you can raise? Well, this depends on what the big blind is currently. In this particular example, we're going with 200 for the big blind. So a minimum raise needs to be double this amount. So in this case, it would be 400. However, because we're playing no limit Texas Hold'em, that means there's no limit to the raise number that you can put in. So if you wanted to, you could bet 800, 4 times the big blind. You could even, if you wanted to, move all of your chips in. There are other forms of poker like limit hold'em where you can only raise certain amounts, but the beauty of no limit is you can raise to any amount as long as it qualifies as a minimum raise, which is double the big blind.